Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Kodo.
How's the sound? Can you hear me in the back? No? Is it in the...
That's it.
On the Zoom okay? Welcome to Upaya. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Kodo, this is Kozan, and we're embarking on a... it's still too quiet in the back? We're hearing... on our young adult session tonight. And so we're going to talk a little bit about beginner's mind and the heart of Zen practice. And it's always such an honor to sit with my Dharma brother Kozan and share in these kinds of talks where we don't really know what the other person's going to talk about other than a kind of vague idea, and it's always exciting. I'm just full of appreciation also for being with all of you in the space, our teacher Roshi Joan, and the many ways that we come together. Just went up quite a bit.
It's a little hot now. Does it help if I turn mine off for a while?
Yeah, I think we can just do one at a time.
I can do that, Bonnie, if it's useful.
He's dark blue. I'm light blue. How about now?
Great.
All right. So beginner's mind is a phrase that was popularized by Suzuki Roshi a long time ago, I think in the 60s or 70s. And the prologue to Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, do you have that book? Is just a quintessential text for anybody interested in Zen, I think Buddhism in general. It's a pretty quick read, 2 or 3 hours, and so highly recommended. And the prologue, there it is, and the prologue keeps kind of going in and out. Is that? So hopefully we're not. Okay. Is short, and I'd love to just visit it with all of you and kind of go through some of the lines and see what Suzuki Roshi has to tell us about Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. Now it's too quiet. Okay.
Suffering.
In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the expert's, there are few. That's the line you may have heard before, and a beautiful kind of beginning to this. So, to quote Suzuki Roshi, people say that practicing Zen is difficult, but there is a misunderstanding as to why. Who thinks that Zen is difficult? I'm just curious. So, who thinks Zen is easy? I knew sure you would raise his hand. It is not difficult because it is hard to sit in the cross-legged position or to attain enlightenment. It is difficult because it is hard to keep our mind pure and our practice pure in its fundamental sense. So that really starts us off, and the question here seems to me is what is pure mind? What does Suzuki Roshi mean by pure mind or pure practice? And pure has so many kind of valences, but we think of pure versus impure, or dirty or defiled. Is that what he means? Like the undefiled mind. And there's a phrase in Zen, not defiled, not immaculate. So I'm not sure if he means that. But I just, my opinion is that perhaps it means something more like uncluttered. So pure in the sense of like pure water, clear, uncluttered, clean in the sense of not dirty, but just spacious, open, free. And so if that's what he means by the difficulty is not, and this is arguable, the difficulty is not in sitting cross-legged for a long time or in attaining enlightenment, may or may not be difficult for us, but it is in keeping the mind uncluttered, clear, and open. And why is it so hard to do that? And maybe I should have asked, I mean, is it hard? And for a real beginner, maybe someone who's never even tried practicing meditation, it might, maybe it's not. Maybe that hasn't even occurred to you, that it's hard to rest the mind. And so for those who haven't tried it to really, or even those who have tried meditation and maybe practiced for decades, to imagine what it was like when you were a real beginner. You really had never tried meditation. You'd maybe heard about it. You got some instruction. Maybe you're following your breath and notice what's arising and notice what's happening in your mind. And then what's the first thing that we notice? It's out of control. The mind is going all over the place, and it's like, oh, well, okay, I'm supposed to rest my mind. I just let go of thoughts. Just let go of thoughts. They, like fly away. Nope, they're still there. They're not just there. They kind of have a total grip on me. And maybe I'm trying to, or I have an intention to be with my breath, but I'm just gone for the whole period. And so we discover from the beginning, perhaps, that it is difficult to settle the mind, to rest the mind, to find that open spaciousness. And so, isn't that strange? I mean, it's perhaps, I'm just trying to remember back when I was kind of first struck by that, or if it was maybe more theoretical, but just thinking about it now, aren't these our minds and our thoughts? Like, don't I think? Don't I have control over like what's arising in my mind and how that content is generated? And yet when we try to meditate, it seems like, no, actually you have very little control of the arisings of the mind. Maybe there's control in what you do with that. And that's another kind of topic, but just that the mind does things by itself, even when we really want it not to. That's like the first thing we notice, is this this uncontrollability of the mind. And so what's that like? Is it more like we think of the mind as like a muscle that we can use, like I'm going to lift up this table, and then when I put it down and I want to rest my muscles, I can just relax and I have total control, pretty much? Or is it like the stomach, where I have control in what I put into it, but as soon as I eat something, I have no control in what my stomach does. It's going to digest the food, it's going to process it. And so if I want the stomach to rest, I can't just, okay, stomach, stop. You have to stop. I have to stop eating. And then maybe that would rest or go through some process. Or is it more like the heart, where it's going to beat no matter what till the day you die? And we can maybe like use techniques to slow down the heart rate or speed it up by being nervous, but we really can't control the heart. And so it's just interesting to look at like what kind of thing, what kind of body part, what kind of faculty is the mind? I think at least I still assume, even though I quotes know better, that I have more control over my mind than, my stomach or something. And yet, with experience of practice, we realize that we don't have the kind of control, perhaps, that we think we do. And so, to go back to Suzuki Roshi, in Japan, we have the phrase shoshin, which means beginner's mind. He says, the goal of practice is always to keep our beginner's mind. And with weeks or months of practice, for a while, you may be able to keep your beginner's mind. But if you continue to practice 1, 2, 3 years or more, although you may improve some, you are liable to lose the limitless meaning of the original mind. And so that's interesting. He seems to be implying here that when we first start, we have it, that limitless original mind. And that through practice, we lose it? Is that what he's saying? I mean, then we should just not practice at all, right? We already have it. But maybe goes without saying, if you don't realize that, if you don't know it for yourself, the limitless original nature, then it doesn't do you a lot of good that it is so. So, we might have faith that, yes, your mind as it is right now is pure, is clear, is uncluttered. And the thoughts and feelings and things that distract you, the distractions, don't actually hinder that original mind. And so it's always available, is the teaching, right? It's there for us to experience, whether we're a rank beginner or a supposed expert. And so what is it like to come back, as he says, to not lose beginner's mind, to come back to that first time you tried meditation? I wonder if we can remember that. I actually do remember the first time I tried meditation. It was on my grandmother's, in my grandmother's house. I was staying on a futon on the floor, and I had just read this book on meditation. I was like, I'm going to try this. And I sat there and I was counting my breaths, and I counted from like 1 to 350 or something. Like, counting was easy, but I'm pretty sure my mind was wandering the whole time. And so there's different kinds of minds. I could just count in the background without really being aware of body or breath or whatever. And so I actually thought I did pretty good. I got to 350, over 20 minutes. And later I realized I was not doing it right. But that's okay. This is the path of continuous failure. So yeah, coming back to that sense of what was it like right at the beginning? Are we trying to find something as we learn more about meditation, as we come to retreat, as we study? Are we trying to find something that will help us, that will like fix our broken or unmanageable mind? And that's, I think, the trick that the mind itself can play in and get to what he's talking about, is you may lose this limitless meaning of original mind. You may start to have an idea of the right thing or how to practice or what it is. And so I just love that he just says, always come back to beginner's mind. What is it like to just let go of what you think you know, and just be there with what it's like to start from scratch? For Zen students, he continues, the most important thing is not to be dualistic. Our original mind includes everything within itself. It is always rich and sufficient within itself. You should not lose your self-sufficient state of mind. This does not mean a closed mind, but actually an empty mind and a ready mind. If your mind is empty, it is always ready for anything. It is open to everything. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. So the key piece here that jumps out to me is to have an empty mind. And that sounds like a dangerous proposition, because you could come to it like I had when I first started, thinking that the goal was to empty our minds of thoughts, that the goal is to have a blank mind, that we sit there and concentrate on our breaths so that nothing is happening in our mind. And then we'll have what Suzuki Roshi is telling us. And I think that's not it. If we go down that road, we'll be very frustrated with trying to control the unruly mind. And I don't have time to go into, my own kind of struggles with my mind, but we'll talk about it more in the retreat. But just to say that, nope, couldn't calm that mind, not that way. And so this word empty, I'm not sure if what he was talking about when he was referring to that was this word shunya, the Sanskrit, which literally means empty. Shunyata, emptiness, you might have heard. But in the kind of Buddhist philosophies, particularly Mahayana, great vehicle philosophy, emptiness is so important, shunyata. But it's translated in many ways. And empty is just one kind of valence of it, the literal translation, like an empty cup, a shunya cup. It does mean empty. But in this temple, we've actually translated it boundless because it also has that quality. And so maybe it makes more sense if we read this paragraph of his, which is not to have a closed mind, but actually a boundless mind and a ready mind. And that feels more in the spirit of what he's talking about. Open and present to what's arising in it, not separate, not dualistic. As, when am I supposed to stop talking? Like 10 minutes, right? Yeah, okay. Just suddenly my ability to do math just vanished like that. I love the metaphor that Kozan sometimes brings up in meditation instruction of your mind being like a vast, boundless, empty sky. And then thoughts are like cloud formations arising in that sky. And to see and notice the thoughts arising and passing away, and not get caught up in them, not get grasped by them, not grasp onto them. And to notice that the sky is not hindered by the clouds. The mind is not hindered by the thoughts that arise within it. The mind is there, clear and pure like the sky. And when a cloud arises, it might even block all of the blue, and yet the sky is still completely there. And when all the clouds go away, it's bright and blue and vivid, but nothing changed as far as the sky was concerned. And so our job is not to get rid of the clouds, to empty the mind in that way, but more like to see the whole sky, including the clouds, as a vast, boundless space. And that, I think, is getting to that sense of the original mind that Suzuki Roshi is saying is beginner's mind, already whole, already complete. Nothing needed to actually change, just need to notice that it is that way. So why can't we do that? Why, if it's already this way, the mind is that way, why is it so hard to notice it? And it's those clouds, right? What's up with those clouds, the thoughts, the things that arise in the mind that suck us up into them, like vortices, tornadoes, I'm imagining, you just go, you're just in that cloud, and all of a sudden you don't see the sky. You're just in a cloud. Or maybe you do see the sky, but you don't realize that you're just in the sky. And so that point of what is it that grips us? What is it that sticks, the stickiness of the thought formations that pull us away from our present awareness of our body, of our breath? That is the thing to look at, right? And I'll just continue with Suzuki Roshi's text. For Zen students, the most important thing is not to be dualistic. Our original mind includes everything within itself. It is always rich and sufficient within itself. Did I already read that? Oh yeah, I already read that. Did anybody notice? It was a test. When your mind becomes demanding, when you long for something, you will end up violating your own precepts, not to tell lies, not to steal, not to kill, and so forth. If you keep your original mind, the precepts will keep themselves. And so that he uses the word discrimination, or he says if you're too demanding or greedy. And so there's something there to explore too. Like, what is the part of the mind that's supposedly greedy? I mean, it's a little bit like bifurcating the self. But it comes to mind of Dogen's, instructions, maybe his most famous passage, to study the way is to study the self. So we're doing this meditation and practice, not just to calm our minds, but to see what's going on. And so that's the first question. Why? What is pulling me away? What was that thing that got me all caught up for however long the sit was? And not to judge ourselves like, oh, I'm a bad meditator, or, my mind is so busy. Like, that's not useful either, but it is useful to look at what happened and explore. What are the things that move me, that motivate me, when I have this intention of relaxing my mind and calm and being with my body, and yet I don't. Why is that? And we can start to see the kind of different movements in the mind that create these graspings, these clingings. And as Dogen says, to study the self is to forget the self. And one thing that could mean is to see that all of these little things that are reaching out and grasping after this are not actually who I am. They're just more arisings in the mind. And we identify with them normally. We think, oh, I want this. That's me. I want this and I want that and I don't want that. And that kind of sense of self that's created by clinging and grasping and pushing away is precisely the thing that is not the self. And as we sit with what's arising in our life, and we can start to see that I can sit here and watch those things come up. I don't have to do anything to separate. I just notice. And it's already freedom. It's right there. You can taste it. It's like, oh, there's space between me and what I think I want or am grasping for. So he says, in the beginner's mind, there is no thought, I have attained something. All self-centered thoughts limit our vast mind. When we have no thought of achievement, no thought of self, we are true beginners. Then we can really learn something. So that no thought of self, again, it's like, feels dangerous to me. And as Wendy Johnson will say, Buddhism's dangerous. We can take it in so many ways. But that no thought of self, to me, that means like not identifying with those movements in our mind that are, trying to identify something of who we are, trying to, just like what I was saying, grasp this or push away that, or come up with. You ever spent a meditation session like thinking about how to describe it? Like how you want to show up or how you want to be or how people see you it's like so much of our thinking is based on that self-creation of how we're seen and how we're, and that's not necessarily bad. It's not like that's a bad thing in the mind, but if we don't realize that it's not who we really are, that's a movement, that's a kind of it's an organic process, just like our stomach digesting in a way. Our mind creates relative self. And the more we can study that and disidentify with it and see it as like a separate thing, then the more we can realize this non-self-centered, vast mind. So I'll just end with this last piece. And Suzuki Roshi is so kind of eloquent in his own, and I just wanted to share a little of my own exploration with this. And he says right here, so the most difficult thing is always to keep your beginner's mind. There is no need to have a deep understanding of Zen. Even though you read much Zen literature, you must read each sentence with a fresh mind. You should not say, I know what Zen is, or I have attained enlightenment. This is also the real secret of the arts. Always be a beginner. Be very, very careful about this point. If you start to practice Zazen, you will begin to appreciate your beginner's mind. It is the secret of Zen practice. So we'll explore this more in the coming days, hopefully with less words. And thank you all so much for listening.
So good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Kozan.
How many people are here for our sesshin this weekend? Who's just arrived? Welcome, welcome. Hello. Wait, keep your hands up over here. Hi. So welcome to sesshin. This is kind of the program before the program. So we're tilling the soil. And thank you, Kodo, for your talk on beginner's mind. We couldn't have a better person giving a talk on beginner's mind.
Thanks a lot.
It's the highest compliment. I was thinking back to the first time I meditated when you told that story. And I think I was quite young. I vaguely remember it. But I had the opposite experience. Someone told me to sit and count, and if I ever got distracted, to start again from 1. And everything I labeled as a distraction. So I could keep the count, but I thought, well, here's the thought came in too, so that's a distraction. I don't think I ever got past 3, and I sat there for quite some time.
You were told to start over.
Because I was told any distraction, and there's constantly something. So it's confusing, you know.
Knowing stuff is cool.
It's really, yeah, well. So this is kind of this time of the year. We're doing this twice a year now. We'll see what we do next year, where we drop into a really simple, quiet, cozy sesshin together, being kind of silent and deepening our practice. And some of you are here to join us for that. And we just started in June. Shinzan and I led a version of this in June. And we never go to this book, which is maybe the most read Zen book in the West. And it's so rarely that we teach from it. And so we've taken this opportunity to kind of plumb the depths of this jewel we have in our tradition. And that's what's inspiring our talk tonight and this weekend, and hopefully something we'll return to again and again. And I'm gonna come at it from a different angle, which is, okay, so we have beginner's mind and pure mind. Huineng, our 6th ancestor in China, says there's only kind of one thing to do, and that's do not disturb the mind. So that's our pure mind. But then we run into a problem usually immediately. And in the middle of the book, Suzuki Roshi talks about this problem. So here's Suzuki Roshi. He says, there are several poor ways to practice that you should know about. Usually when you practice Zazen, you become very idealistic, and you set up an ideal or a goal, and then you strive to attain and fulfill this ideal or goal. But as I have often said, this is absurd. When you are idealistic, you have some gaining idea within yourself. By the time you attain your ideal or goal, your gaining idea will create another ideal. Did you follow that? So our gaining idea is creating a bunch of ideals, and we're kind of going after them. So long as your practice is based on gaining idea, and you practice Zazen in an idealistic way, you will have no time, actually, to attain your ideal. Moreover, you will be sacrificing the meat of your practice. Because your attainment is always ahead, you will always be sacrificing yourself now for some ideal in the future. You end up with nothing, he says. This is quite absurd. So I've been studying the Platform Sutra. It's on my mind. And I am reminded, this is kind of a core text in the Zen tradition, if you haven't read it, and I'm reminded of the beginning where he just asks everyone in the community to purify your mind. And they all, we can imagine, sit in silence like we did for the first 15 minutes before the two of us started talking. And that activity was the whole of the teaching. Just purify your mind. And then the rest of the sutra is him trying to make sure people aren't confused, basically. And that's us, we get confused. So Noah has invited us to return again and again to beginner's mind, to just this natural awareness that we already are endowed with, that already is our inheritance. But if you're anything like me, the second you hear, well, have beginner's mind, you have an idea of what beginner's mind is, and you've set it up as a goal, and I'm going to achieve that goal of being a beginner through and through. But that goal is always somewhere on the horizon, somewhere out there, somewhere right in front of us maybe. And it's always a little distant from our experience right here, which is our natural mind, our beginner's mind, our don't know mind. So Suzuki Roshi very kindly says, well, this is a mistake in practice. How do we notice this and avoid it? And this may be, this is the entirety of our practice. Zen is maybe difficult, maybe easy. It's not so complicated. It's just this. The second we hear it's just this, we think, well, it's just that thing he said, just this. And we're always in some relationship that's closing the gap or returning to where we are. So we'll notice that we hear this, and then we have this ingenious monkey mind. And if we're not putting in some kind of effort to stay aware of what's going on in our life and our mind, this ingenious monkey mind, this grasping mind, always inevitably finds new ways for us to grasp at something as an ideal, as a goal, as a thing we're going to achieve. So what do we do? That's always going on. How do we practice? Well, first, and Kodo mentioned this, it was embedded in his words, instead of figuring out the whole philosophy of Zen Buddhism before we start seriously practicing, we flip things on its head. We seriously practice as a way of directly realizing the whole philosophy of Buddhism. So the most important thing we do is just give ourselves to the activity of practice, to be curious, attentive, to ask, what's here? That's the first thing. And maybe this is because I'm teaching a class right now that I'm noticing in the students I'm working with in Europa, this desire to know what meditation practice is fully before they're willing to do it. And we just don't do it that way. It doesn't actually work. And if we're new to practice, we just commit to doing it without fully knowing what's to come. In fact, if we really knew what was to come, we'd be right back in the realm of the ideal. In this open space, you get why? If we knew what was to come, we have an idea, we're following the idea. So instead, we have this open space of not knowing, and we give ourselves to the kind of what can be a vertiginous experience of not having something we know we're going after, not pointing in a particular direction, but instead engaging in what we call receptive samadhi, the whole world penetrating this awareness, rather than this awareness going out and grasping the whole world. So in this not knowing or receptive samadhi, we have a monkey mind that wants to go back to what it's used to knowing, to grasping. This is our back and forth. And we can get very frustrated, or we can think, why am I doing this anyway? Or we can have all sorts of ideas that this isn't enough. And I'm going to posit we have three things to support us as we return to this practice of open awareness. And that during our week together, those of us who will be sitting sesshin, and during our life together, those of us who will be practicing continuously together, we have three things that we can return to that are really helpful. So these three things, I'll just list them, we don't have to be in suspense, are the great bodhisattva vows, which we'll chant at the end of this talk, the posture of zazen, and each other. These are the three things. Great bodhisattva vows, the posture of zazen, that one's probably a surprise for a lot of you, and each other. So we'll start with the great bodhisattva vows. So these great vows are like a pocket map for us that include the entirety of our practice. And they're in 4 short lines. Anyone not know the great vows? Thank you. We have true beginners here to remind us that we're all beginners. Yeah. So the vows are as follows. Creations are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to transform them. Reality is boundless. I vow to perceive it. The awakened way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. So what are creations? Anyone, what are creations we're vowing to free? Mental. Kate says mental constructs. Clouds. Anyone have a favorite creation? Any creations?
Cats.
Cats, dogs. Your identity. There we go. Churros, I heard someone say. Suffering. Memories. Yeah, those are some of my favorite. So these creations are every thought, every feeling, every sensation, every memory, every story, every mind castle. And we vow sincerely to free them all. We don't vow to figure them out. We don't vow to have tea with them. We vow to free them. And as the 6th Chinese ancestor teaches, again, he's been on my mind, he says, thought after thought, not to become attached. Whether a past thought, a present thought, a future thought, let one thought follow another without interruption. Let one thought follow another without interruption. So this is the practice of freeing creations. Creations don't stop, they are numberless. It's in the vow. Thought after thought, creation after creation, we free them. And when we free creations, rather than hold on to them, they become our teachers. The thought that we aren't meditating correctly, or that we're bored of practice, these become a signal that we've fallen back into what Suzuki Roshi is calling our idealistic idea, some gaining idea. Suzuki says, if so, you should be grateful that you have a sign to show you this. At that time, that is when you notice you're bored or you have some critique or it's not what you think it should be, you should be grateful. At that time, forgetting all about your mistake, that is the mistake of believing that thought, you renew your way. You can resume your original practice. So, thought after thought, and then we get stuck, we notice, and we come back. So I have a story that I'm going to skip, but let's just say we all have a story of getting caught by a thought or a creation. And this is our experience, kind of really getting to know that territory well on the cushion. So what happens when we become attached to a thought? When we become attached, we say the thought becomes a delusion. We believe the thought as if it were reality. A loss becomes a wound, becomes a referendum on our life or our character. Or a joy becomes a promise, becomes a story about how things are meant to be. These are the acrobatics of our story-making mind. This is what our mind likes to do. And we're constantly doing tricks to remake the world in our own desired image, constantly attaching to it, creation, making the world into our projection. And delusions, we think, are kind of a bad thing. You know, delusion, we don't want to be in delusion. But it can confuse us because delusions don't usually feel bad. Delusions usually feel good. That's why we wrap ourselves in them. That's why we enjoy them so much. They're the warm blanket of our habitual mind. Whether it's the story that everything's always right or the story that everything's always wrong, it's equally a story that gives us certainty, belonging, and control. Our stories, no matter their feeling tone for us, are safe because we've come to know them so well. The repetition gives something that is otherwise empty, otherwise connected to all things, boundless, the illusion of having some weight and some texture, some substance that buffers us from formlessness, that buffers us from openness, which can be so frightening. So it's worth noting that delusions generally arise from three things. This can be helpful for us in noticing them. First, the belief that thoughts are I, me, and mine, which is the habit of self-identification. Second, the belief that things are permanent, that we can have and attain some perfect awakening or great joyful thing that will always be there forever, and we can hold it up or hold it tight like a trophy or a teddy bear, whatever the case may be. And the third, the belief that we are somehow separate from everything else, rather than intricately tied up with all things. And when we turn toward delusion, and as the vow says, transform delusion, we notice or gain insight into the nature of our life, into the nature of reality, which of course is not marked by these things, but the absence of them. So this is transforming delusion. The third vow, reality is boundless, I vow to perceive it. I always feel funny saying anything about this vow. Reality is boundless. I think if we stop, we feel that. In a long period of sitting or in a week of sitting together, like we're about to enter into, we may go into long periods of being in the same story again and again and again. And the metaphor I like is going into a small theater. For some reason, my theater has like 4 seats, but it's just me in it. And I'm eating popcorn and I'm watching the same story on repeat, maybe a few stories on repeat. And I'm just enthralled. And the popcorn's good at first, and the theater's cozy, and over and over and over again. And then eventually it's really boring. And with time, I step out of the theater and the stories are no longer the stories I'm playing. And immediately, the world's so big. This life's so big. I didn't have to do anything. I just turned the projector off. So reality is boundless. An old Chinese master, Xuanxia, says, the entire world of the 10 directions is the true human body. The entire world of the 10 directions is within the radiant light of the self. This is just the way things are. So this leads us to posture. And you're going to notice I didn't go to the 4th great vow, which we'll get back to. But posture is the second thing I said we could return to support us. And it's something Suzuki Roshi writes about. He says, our body and mind are not two and not one. If you think your body and mind are two, that's incorrect. If you think that they are one, that is also wrong. Our body and mind are both two and one. So I'm talking about this because how could posture be a support for our whole life? Well, the posture is more than just the posture. And we don't need to figure out where the body stops and the mind begins. We just trust that body and mind co-arise. And you could say that body affects mind and mind affects body, But this would be separating them. And we could say that mind is the body and body is the mind, but this would be to confuse the two. So we recognize that the posture occurs in the body, but extends beyond the body. So here's Suzuki Roshi again. The most important thing in taking the posture is to keep your spine straight. Your ears and your shoulders should be in one line. Relax your shoulders, tuck the chin, eyes forward. He goes on like this for a while, and those of you just joining us will go on like this for a while tomorrow morning when we're teaching meditation. And then he says, these forms, this way to hold the posture, are not a means of obtaining the right state of mind. To take this posture itself is the purpose of our practice. When you have this posture, you have the right state of mind. So there's no need to try to attain some special state. When you try to attain something, your mind starts to wander about somewhere else. When you do not try to attain anything, you have your own body and mind right here. Hi, Skyla. So we may ask, and you may have had this question, how do we exert right effort when effort is towards a goal or an ideal and it mixes up the mind, creates waves in the mind? And we can take refuge in the posture, which includes the intention, the aspiration to wake up. The posture is this thing that is bigger than just the posture, so that it includes our effort, so that we don't have to make something extra. And then we just return, and it's already there. So the third support we have in putting down the habit of gaining idea, of gaining mind, is each other. We never practice alone. And this week in Sesshin, this will be abundantly clear for some of us. We practiced with Skyla tonight. So I talk to a lot of practitioners online who join us for programs and are practicing at home. And it's so hard. It's much more difficult than practicing together. There's nothing to stop you from jumping off the cushion because you had an idea that the kettle might be on or your back really aches. But it almost never happens here in the Zendo. My stillness supports your stillness. The stillness of a whole body becomes one stillness. So this is a way in which we deeply support one another, not to mention that we cook and clean and tend to things together, so many hands make light work. So this is the fourth vow, this piece. The awakened way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. And when we embody it in this way, fully, the distinction between inside and outside, you and me, starts to disintegrate. There's something deeper than just supporting each other's stillness that arises in practicing together. So Suzuki Roshi points to the breath for this understanding. He says, when we practice Zazen, our mind always follows our breathing. When we inhale, the air comes in to the inner world. When we exhale, the air goes out to the outer world. The inner world is limitless, and the outer world is also limitless. The inner world is limitless, the outer world is limitless. So when we say inner world or outer world, there's actually just one whole world. In this limitless world, our throat is like a swinging door. This is really beautiful. This might be my favorite part of the whole book. The air comes in and goes out like someone passing through a swinging door. If you think I breathe, the I is extra. There's no you to say I. What we call I is just a swinging door which moves when we inhale and when we exhale. It just moves. That's all. When your mind is pure and calm enough to follow this movement, there's nothing. No I, no world, no mind, nor body. Just a swinging door. You and I are swinging doors. You may rightfully ask, hearing this, well, if you and I are just swinging doors, how do we support each other then? There's no you or I to be of support. And although this is true, we forget, at least I forget. We think we are separate, each doing our own thing in some independent, strenuous world. But then you bow to me from across the zendo. And it gives me the opportunity to let go of everything, to return your bow, to dive into the space between, that vast emptiness. This is our fourth vow. The awakened way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. So I have galloped through these three supports, mainly for those of us going into Sesshin, because I hope they are of benefit to us and to those of you who are just beginning practice. And what's important to remember is everything we set up as a support or a teaching is also empty of that teaching. So as you'll probably notice, these three things are the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. That's just a version of them. And we go to take refuge to support our upright together practice. And when we do it fully, even that disappears. We're just here. So I'll close, and I'm very grateful we get to have an opening in a minute after dinner, where we'll talk a little bit about Sesshin. But I'll close our talk tonight, for all of us, with the encouragement from Hongzhi. Not a single hair or grain of rice can impede your finally renewing and straightening yourself. Readily, you can now cast away everything. The circle integrates brightness. Its spirit triumphs in wonder. With thoughts clear, sitting silently, wander in the center of the circle of wonder. With thoughts clear, sitting silently, wander in the center of the circle of wonder. Wonderful to practice with all of you. Thank you all.
President, please, Ms. President. Actually, we'll leave the mat set up on the floor.